This episode of WDW Today is being sponsored by All Star Vacation Homes. And, if you're going to Walt Disney World soon, you're saying to yourself, I would love to go to Walt Disney World, but I really want to have a lot of space when I'm down there. I really want to be able to spread out. A week at Pop Century just doesn't sound like a great idea to me. Well, why not consider an All Star Vacation Home? They're going to give you a lot of space, lots of great amenities, and it's going to be for a fraction of the price if you try to get that same space amenities at a Walt Disney World room. So give them a try. Go to allstarvacationhomes.com. Check out the houses they got over there, and I bet you'll find something you'll like.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes, and we'll give you the world.
It's Friday, June 4th, 2010, and this is episode 729 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hochberg of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Len Testa, co-author of the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. Len, touringplans.com has been very busy hiring new people. You're single-handedly stimulating the economy, and now there seems to be a meet every day at Walt Disney World.
I know. Our Lines users are doing spontaneous meetups. I feel like I'm just surfing on top of a crowd of thousands. It's really kind of neat, actually. They're making their own luggage tags and shirts now. It's really
so they're kind of like your staff is kind of like Skynet.
Exactly. They're beyond control at this point, and I love them all, every one of them. Can't wait to see what they do next.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. And Mike, I got some, good news for you, bad news for me.
Oh, great.
My wife, we got our AT&T bill, and last month my wife used 83 megabytes of
what? That's it?
Traffic on her phone, and I think it's all from Mouse World Radio.
Actually, I use 2 gig, and it is entirely because of Mouse World Radio.
Yeah, exactly.
I stream it every day at work.
Well, if you,
I'm switching to Mouse World Radio 4. It's a 32K stream.
Excuse me, gigabytes, not megabytes.
Oh, gigs. Okay.
Gigs, sorry, not megabytes. Yeah, megabytes would not be very impressive. Gigabytes.
My advice to you is to not change your plan. Did you see AT&T is changing their?
I did see that, and
Yeah.
Change your plan.
thank heaven I have the thank heaven for 7-Eleven and for the unlimited plan, because this woman just consumes Mouse World Radio constantly.
I always knew she was the better half.
She's always been, of the two, right? She's always been our favorite.
Right.
Thank you.
I always said that.
Okay.
Better 2/3. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you do it too.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Scopa, a senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. Very slick, Mike.
How about a nice handbag for Pretty Mama?
Pretty mama.
How about a nice handbag?
I've never heard that in my
How
life.
about a nice handbag for Pretty Mama?
Sounds like something from Aladdin, but
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
Legend of the Lion King.
No.
Aladdin and
No,
the Parade of
Festival of the
Thieves.
Lion King.
No.
Splashtacular.
Muppets.
Muppets.
I gotta go with you. All right, what is it, Mike?
If you had wings.
Yeah, at the end, the Mexican.
Is that where they follow the boat?
Yeah.
They follow the boat along, or the boat. They follow the car with.
Yeah, they run along. Yeah, they run along the side.
the boat?
yeah.
It just totally misses the whole point of it.
No, you know what? I was.
You're in the boat. I'm gonna start describing If You Had Wings that way. When you're in the boat.
No, but they did the exact same thing in the River of Time over in Mexico. The exact
Yes.
same
Yeah,
effect.
when you're flying along.
Also joining us on today's show is Beth Blanchard, who runs a website called mouseaid.com. It's mouse-aid.com. Welcome to the show, Beth.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're glad to have you on here, Beth. And, we always like to talk with fellow members of the Disney Internet community. And today we're talking about special needs. And it's something that we've kind of covered in the past, but we wanted to focus on a particular area. And certainly, Beth, you and your website cover a great gamut of different special needs that exist out there as it pertains to visiting Walt Disney World. But I think one we'd like to focus on today is going to be with people of size that are coming to Walt Disney World and dealing with the challenges and both perceived and reality that exist at Walt Disney World for that. So talk to us, Beth, about where you'd like to start off with this evening.
Oh, there's so many different areas that we can talk about, from actually feeling limited on which rides you can get into comfortably, or just dealing with the emotional aspects, dealing with some of the stress or even anger at times.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, Beth, because a lot of times we get emails from our listeners saying, either they're going to Walt Disney World or they're bringing someone to Walt Disney World, and they're worried about getting into rides, not making a scene, not doing anything like that. So, I mean, I guess if you're going into this situation and you're worried about either your size or someone in your party's size becoming an issue, what would you tell those people?
Well, I would say to talk to a cast member at a particular ride, if because a lot of times there are some rides that have a cart on the side to see if the person can actually get into the ride, if they, or if they would need other accommodations. And so they do it discreetly. And so this way you're not in line and stopping the line and maybe feel embarrassed or out of place or struggling. And so I would ask a cast member at the particular ride that you're interested in riding and ask them, if there would be any limitations or if they would foresee any problems that you might have.
What would be your advice, I guess, if you're saying to someone coming down there and they're worried about it? I mean, is this a huge problem that they need to worry about? Is it something that is really going to be something that a real thing of concern, or do people generally overstate the issue in their mind?
I think, it's really hard to say because everybody is different and everybody has their own, it's their own reality, their own life. And some people have had more difficulty with it than others. Maybe people in their family, their family unit is not as tolerant as another family. Maybe someone has recently had, say, some weight gain and is not very comfortable as maybe someone who maybe has carried a little more weight all their life and is more comfortable in their skin. So there are just so many extenuating circumstances that come into play that we really can't judge and say, well, you shouldn't feel bad about it or, it shouldn't be an issue. And of course, those are the kind of things that we try to handle on the site is, if you're having something, work it out, talk to us about it, do it in a place where you're not judged, you're not going to be criticized for it, and you can deal with it beforehand, before getting down there and start then stressing or having things come into play where you start to feel miserable.
Absolutely, makes sense. So let's talk about some of the approaches that you recommend to some of your readers in the past for preparing yourself for going to Walt Disney World if you are a person of size. Tell us a little bit about what approaches you recommend to help ease the fears and concerns.
First, I would try to think, well, what are your plans? What do you think would be a problem? Let's not anticipate these problems if maybe it's really not a big problem. And surprisingly or not, sometimes someone will tell me, well, I'm really afraid somebody's going to tell me something, or I'm afraid I'm going to embarrass someone in my family. Things, it is more of an emotional or just the stress, their own personal stress, than say physical limitations. And so I help with different techniques in which to deal with those with whatever situation is bothering you. Because there are different techniques, different things that you can address. You can role play with someone, for example, or, just give them ideas on communication. What to do if somebody says something ugly to you, how do you handle it? And of course you have several options and those options are dependent on the individual and what they perceive will work for them, and what they're comfortable with doing. Humor might work with one person. Being brutally honest may work with another, dealing with it as if you would like bullying. If somebody comes up and says something very rude to you, you can just state the obvious. Right. And that sort of takes the, it sort of deflates their aggression.
Sure. Hey, Len, you get, for the unofficial guide, you get a lot of feedback from readers about every gamut of anything in Walt Disney World. And what kind of feedback do you typically get from your readers about people who are worried about both going before and after? What kind of responses have you gotten from your readers in terms of dealing with people of size at Walt Disney World?
The big concern that people have is that they're not going to be able to go on the rides that they want with their kids. So Dumbo is one where we typically get lots of questions. The people want to know that they'll be able to fit into Dumbo with their child, and especially if they've got two kids, right? Then that becomes a more pressing question for them. So so we asked them that. And questions about things like Tower of Terror, where people would like to go on the ride, but they're not sure if they are seatbelt extenders, for example, or on things like Rock and Roller Coaster, whether they'll be able to get the seat the bar restraint, the safety restraints down far enough to engage them. Those are typically the big questions. It's not so much that they're concerned about whether Disney's designed the ride right. The question that everybody has is, or the concern that everyone is expressing is, I want to be there to see the excitement on my kid's face. How do I do that? Right? It's not that they want to go on the ride themselves, right? I mean, I'm sure they do, but the main thing is my kids are going. I want to take my kids. I want it to be fun. I want to be there with them. How do I best do this? So
that makes sense. And I think some of the concerns that Len mentioned, Beth, are some that you've run into before.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and of course, I would look at it as from a grief or a loss instance with some situations, say when let's say you cannot get on a particular ride with a child. Dumbo, for example, I think sometimes it's hard to fit two children in with one adult, on in some normal circumstances. There are rides where it can get kind of snug with three people. And from a parenting perspective, yes, I think there's a lot of this feeling of frustration that you just can't, you're limited and you cannot do the things that you really hope to, and you don't want your child to miss out. And like you mentioned, you don't want to miss out on, just seeing the expression on their face and hearing that giggle right up, right next to them. So it's, and so then dealing with that, if you positively cannot go on this ride, well, then that's another issue. Then we'll deal with the loss and what you can do. Find some suitable substitute to, maybe go onto a ride that you can enjoy.
Absolutely.
Taking photographs with, a partner that's, like maybe your spouse or, another relative, or if the children are old enough, two older children together in the ride where, like Dumbo, for example, you could take the photographs from down below. Right.
No, that makes sense. What are some of the concerns and that some of your readers and some of your website visitors have mentioned to you? And give us maybe an example of something that may benefit some other people here who may be experiencing the same kind of concerns about their trip. Is there an instance that you can recall from someone on your site that had a similar issue, with concerns either before they went, or maybe even they came back from a trip and they need, information for a future trip for making it, a more positive experience overall?
About loss of not riding with them, or?
Well, they could be that,
or anything.
Or anything, yeah.
Okay. Because, I know you're not only limited to people of size, but also people that have some other physical limitations, say maybe a back injury or, another issue where, you can't ride, you're limited. So of course I would also look at the perspective of, well, a person that's limited by size is not the only person that's excluded. So, it's a thing we're going to move forward and try to, make the best of it. But I've also had people that have stressed or discussed, were very uncomfortable with the feeling of being embarrassed by, coming up to the ride and finding, well, you can't get on.
Right.
And feeling very uncomfortable with that. And, that's why I had mentioned before about, there are sometimes, I know Rock and Roller Coaster has a car on the side that you can try before you get up to the front of the line. Those sort of things, just to be prepared. I think it helps you then, if you're prepared before you go, then, or prepared for next time, then to be right in that situation and, the child's crying, but I wanted you to come with me and so on. So it's just a little foresight can really help a lot. And it's hard. But unfortunately, there, like I said, there are many reasons why people are limited in some rides.
Yeah. It's something that I think by and, let I think for the most part that Disney World is one of the most accommodating places to go. I mean, in terms of any special challenges, to say the least. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I agree. But sometimes we have physical limitations. You know, like I said, if you have a back injury or something, or a broken leg or anything else, sometimes they can be temporary, sometimes they're permanent. But we have situations where people are limited on the rides that they can enjoy. And it's no fault, like you said, Disney's very accommodating, but unfortunately in life, there are times when we have, we have losses, whether it's a loss of not being able to ride a particular ride or not being able to afford to go. I mean, there are, many different levels of loss, and those are things that we're going to really experience throughout life.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tell us a little bit more about how the site and what your recommendations are for people who might have these similar concerns.
Well, what we try is we try to work on communication. Our focus is to help people to reduce stress, because travel is very, very stressful, and helping maybe a person, let's say you can't get on with your child, learning how to handle it and finding an appropriate substitute, learning how to communicate to the child, be able to express and be honest, I really feel bad about this. So I think communication is very, very important. Also, maybe let's say your spouse or your cousin or somebody's upset that you can't ride with them, or your child's upset that angry with you. Ways of dealing with the anger. Just really countless ways in which to just address the psychosocial issues that go along with travel, because travel can be difficult. And we just hope to make it easier for people, because, we all hope to have a wonderful time there.
Hey, Beth, I have a question. I was just thinking of something interesting to ask. Since you've launched the site, can you put your finger on the 3 top concerns that you've been receiving from visitors to the site? 3 concerns that seem to be constantly reappearing and resurfacing all the time?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think, because we do have someone on the site. I think we've had a lot of grief on our site. People dealing with loss of family members and the struggle with returning without that family member, and how to cope with it, and how to how to prepare for it and to move on. Those are always pretty difficult things to deal with, and I think it's much needed. We have someone on our site who has had a Make-A-Wish child, and it's hard to go on. It's hard to return without that child after you've had such a wonderful experience. And so preparing for dealing with the grief and making it a positive thing has been one of our a place where we focus. And we also try to do things to be a voice for people when someone has had difficulty and they can't figure out what to do, and they're just not able to call and say. We've actually made calls for people to help them with situations that they didn't know the right person to call, or who to ask and where to begin. But a lot of it has been more with chronic illness or illness with children. We do have a lot of people with chronic illness, from Crohn's disease and rheumatoid arthritis. We have a nice population of older people as well, and I think that it creates a community for people that are traveling alone. I don't think we consider it much of a special need, but it's still, there's another buddy out there you can talk to on what it's like to travel alone.
Yeah,
there.
first time solo traveler would have, I would guess, many concerns.
And also traveling with an aging parent has been one of our topics.
Oh, really? And dealing with it, because it's not even the mobility issues, right? You're talking more about even the personal care needs that go along with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And things, I know I've taken my father down there myself, and just like you say, between the personal care and the fatigue and just learning how to travel with the mobility issues. It's or losing them when they turn off their cell phone, or I haven't had to deal with dementia, but helping people that have actually traveled with people with with dementia or Alzheimer's. Yeah. So it's just things to think about and to help it help predict what may happen so that you're prepared when it does.
Absolutely, I think that's the key. And we talk about being prepared on a Walt Disney World trip, be it planning which restaurants you're going to, or knowing your plan of attack for the parks. And certainly when you're talking about health concerns, that's also something you don't want to underestimate or not be prepared for, because it's very important to have those concerns be part of the planning process just as much as which park you're going to be going to on what day. Exactly.
It's especially for people traveling with illness.
Absolutely. Well, again, the website is mouseaid.com, mouse-aid.com. And Beth, I want to thank you very much for not only the great job you've done on the website, but also for joining us and helping us out. Hopefully there's some listeners who have benefited from hearing a little of this information, and hopefully they'll be able to take something out of this and be able to make their next trip a little bit better. So thank you very much, Beth.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
And that'll do it for us today. Don't forget that this episode of WDW Today is being sponsored by All-Star Vacation Homes. And, if there's one great thing about any vacation, it's going to be having a lot of space, not being on top of each other, feeling like you can go back to your resort and relax. Why not go back to your home? Because you're going to get a house to yourself. That's how great it is at a typical All-Star Vacation Home. They've got private bedrooms for everyone, private bathrooms for everyone, full kitchens, game rooms, movie theaters, private pools. These are just some of the many, many amenities that you'll find at a typical All-Star Vacation Home. Check them out online at www.allstarvacationhomes.com. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the WDW Today website at wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell F., and Beth Blanchard, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
Stupid Judy, stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.